We've been doing several episodes on what is in the new Secure Act 2.0. Today on Friends Talk Financial Planning, we're going to talk about what's not in the new Secure Act. Things that you might have heard about that have not made it in, and things you don't need to worry about. Hi, I'm John Shear, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel, and I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. And John, before we talk about the Secure Act some more, let's remind everybody to subscribe. It helps us grow our channel and helps more people find out about our information.
That's great.
John, let's go. There's been a lot of talk about what's in the Secure Act. But then before the Secure Act even was passed, there was a lot of bantering about what might be in it. And a lot of times people aren't clear about what made the cut and what did not make the cut.
There's all this white noise, right? When something happens and you go, holy cow, how do we separate these things out, right? So check out some of our previous episodes here. We talk about some important things that you need to know for 2023 and for the coming years. But today we have 6 things we want to talk about that you might have heard about, that have been talked about in the press, some directly with the Secure Act, some with other tax law changes that you don't need to worry about for the foreseeable future here. And the first one that I wanted to bring up is that the idea of closing off the backdoor Roth, where you put money into a regular IRA and then convert it to Roth IRA. That's a tactic that people can use in order to make a Roth IRA contribution where they might not otherwise be able to do that. A lot of talk about that going away with various tax law changes, talked about with the Secure Act, and that has completely fallen off the table. So the idea, and there was talk in our world, right? We were talking before we hit record about episodes or sessions that we attend at conferences talking about, do we continue to do backdoor Roths because they might close this at some point in time, which doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, some legitimate, hey, this is something we need to be prepared for. Nope, that's off the table right now.
Yeah,
right?
And backdoor Roths, that's a technique that I know in our office we use a lot.
Yeah.
And fee-only financial planners, I think, tend to do it more than other people in the industry because we're putting our clients' interest ahead of our own. And it's also like a paperworky kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a good tactic for, you have to be kind of on top of it.
Yeah.
And it is something that an office like ours can kind of do efficiently. Whereas if you're trying to figure it out yourself, you can. Exactly. Yeah, the information's readily available, but it's not that easy to do. Yeah. So backdoor Roths, still that loophole is still in, and to me, the fact that they haven't closed it, to me says, well, they know about it and they haven't closed it, and so it makes it a little bit more, this is sort of intended, but I know we disagree on that point.
Well, and it is interesting talking about what the intentions are. Who knows exactly what goes on and when they make some of these laws. But one of the other things that has not changed is making Roth IRA conversions. And we've talked, again, check out previous episodes for this sort of Rothification of retirement plans, the things that are in the act where incentivizing towards Roth, not shutting down the backdoor Roth IRA, incentivizing towards that, not shutting down conversions, again, incentivizing towards that. And when we talk about Roth conversions, what we mean is taking an IRA and then paying taxes on it and turning it into Roth IRA, right? You can do as much money as you want to and make that conversion. Back in the old days when Roths first came out, you could do a conversion, but there was a limit. If you had a certain amount of income, no Roth conversions, right? Then they changed it and said, you can do a conversion anytime you want to, but you still can't do a contribution, which is where that backdoor Roth thing comes in. But they haven't shut down backdoors. They haven't shut down the Roth conversions. Again, it does make some sense to think, okay, are they trying to get incentivized to have Roths? But that's been a topic of discussion in the past. Geez, can we continue to do Roth conversions and do strategic planning when it comes to getting into especially those early years of retirement? That's still on the table. You don't need to worry about that. That has not gone away, and I don't think there's any talk about it going away in the near future either, as far as I know.
And in our office, we do this a lot. When people stop working, don't need to take required minimum distributions yet, and are not taking Social Security yet, then we look at, okay, should we do some Roth conversions while they're still in the, say, 10 or 12% bracket, and we think they're going to be in a higher bracket later. So just a quick recap of that strategy. Another thing they have not changed is the qualified charitable distribution age, which is kind of awkward, not just to say, but the whole rule's awkward. So I kind of wish they had changed this
Right.
one way or another. But
Well, what
they
it used to be is when you turned 70 and a half, you had to take money out of your IRAs. And when you turned 70 and a half, you could make donations to charity from your IRAs, this qualified charitable distribution, or QCD, right? So it was nice and neat. They're both the same thing. Now, not so much.
No, now you can make qualified charitable contributions or qualified charitable distributions when you are 70 and a half.
Yeah, that hasn't changed, but
Yeah.
the minimum age for taking out money went from 70 and a half to 72. Then
Now
it's going to be
it's
73. Then it's going to be 75.
Right.
Right. So the age we have to take it out is changing, but the age where you can make these donations has not changed. Again, a planning opportunity for people, but it's something that hasn't been changed, and so you need to be aware that, hey, if you're 70 and a half, you can make donations from your IRA, which can be, in the right situation, a great tax thing to do. But it used to be tied to the minimum distributions. Now, no, those are two separate things we got to keep track of.
Yeah, and the problem I see with it, I wish it was just either 70 or 71. By the time you're 70, who keeps track of half years?
You don't keep
you
your
stop
half your birthday, right? No, I'm 6 months, I'm 12 months, 18 months, and now I'm 70 in 6 months. Isn't that how we think about it?
Right. So next thing they haven't changed is capital gains rates.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that,
Yeah.
right? Back before the last presidential election about what's going to happen if there's a change in political regime and then capital gains taxes are slated to go up, right? A lot of conversations about back in those days, do we take those Roth, do we take capital gains today to take advantage of these low rates? Because, boy, they're going to change it. Nope, didn't happen. Didn't happen in Secure 2.0. Not on the horizon for things.
Yeah. And my 2 cents is, as somebody who's been doing taxes for 25 years, is actually that kind of legislation is hard.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of work to get. It's a hot button issue, and so there's just a lot of people that don't want it.
Yeah.
So
I just want to make sure we point out too that Bridget started doing taxes when she was 10, right? So
right. Next item: step up in basis.
Yeah, and so that's again talking about these capital gains things. What happens when a person dies right now? If I buy a stock for $10,000 and it goes up to $100,000, when I die, it goes to my kids, and they have their basis in tax jargon is $100,000. They don't have to pay taxes on any of those gains. So there was conversation about, well, geez, that doesn't seem fair, which can be a legitimate point. And you say, well, maybe we should not have this step up in basis that, listen, if I would have paid taxes when I sell that stock, my kids should pay taxes when they sell that stock. I mean, not illogical by any stretch, but that is off the table. We haven't seen any conversation from a record-keeping standpoint, golly, that open up a lot of other cans of worms too, right? So whether it's good or bad, we're not talking about that necessarily, right? It could be a reasonable thing, could be a gigantic pain. That's not on the table. And it was, again, a big topic of discussion a couple of years ago. Hey, when the Democrats get in control, what are they going to do as far as making these changes? Yep, gigantic tax changes. This is not one of those things to think about.
Yeah, and if you die, you first goes to your spouse generally, and then to your kids. So whoever inherits it. That's what I say.
Right. Yeah.
But it takes the burden off of them. All they have to remember is the day you die, and then they can look up what the step up in basis is. So that's why this is one of those that the tax preparers actually don't want. The step up in basis just as much as the people who inherit the money do.
Right.
And the last item, estate tax rules.
Yeah, so as it stands right now, right, there's a giant exemption over $11 million. I mean, when I die, I can pass that to my family, spouse kids, right? And there was talk about it going back, right? And I can never remember the exact number, but it goes back to around $5 million. That's going to happen here in 2026 when the tax law reverts back to the old law. Right. But they were talking about maybe even $1 million exemption, which, I mean, it's a lot of money, right? But suddenly you go, hey, you take a look at your 401k and your house and some life insurance, and could be catching a lot of people with estate tax. A lot of discussion about making changes to this, and again, not going to argue whether it's right or wrong, but the idea is, hey, big discussions. I knew people that were making plans based on here's what we think is going to happen. All those are off the table, at least for the current tax thinking. And I think maybe this is a great time to sort of wrap up and talk about this idea. Hey, there's some really important things to know about what's not in the plan. But as you think about this stuff, trying to guess what's going to happen. Oh, yeah, we know this is going to happen. Golly, that's really tough to do. And with your experience going back since you were 10 years old, right?
Right.
But there is a tax law change coming down the pike, right, in 2026, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good time to be having your heads up. So it's more likely to be happening in 2026 because the current law expires. And so if they don't do anything, it will revert back to the previous law. And so that's a logical time for the politicians to be motivated to work on it. Because again, this stuff is hard for them to work out.
Right.
It's a difficult.
Both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're predicting, hey, nothing's going to happen until 2026, but that's a trigger point, right?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be surprising that, hey, nothing happened. They passed a big law, nothing happens for a few years, and then as the taxes are going to change anyway, maybe that's going to be one of these trigger points. So just keep that in mind as you think about that. And even when we get to that point, when they're talking about, yep, we're going to do something, we have no idea what it is. There's no reason to make any changes. Be aware, be informed, but making changes, what you think might happen, like in many cases, but especially taxes, is not a recipe for success.
And so with that, I am Bridget Sullivan-Mermel, and I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shearer. I have a family financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Both Bridget and I are members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, and both Bridget and I are taking on new clients, so we're looking to add new people to our practices. But if you like what we talk about and want somebody in your direct area, you can check out acplanners.org. And
please subscribe.
That's right.